Hey guys, after 1 year of studying in art school now, I will review my old portfolio that got me here and cringe about it because there are things that definitely could have been better. But I was still a beginner and I was still learning, and you are here to learn too. So let's start. At the very beginning, I want to refer to this video that I remember watching when I wanted to apply to art school. And I can just remember how stressed out I was watching this. I mean, look at all the detail in that video and in that artworks. And she's even criticizing the artwork. So I'm here to tell you that you don't have to have such high expectations of yourself because you're just starting out. This is just the beginning of your art journey. With this video, I'm gonna help you to set realistic expectations of how you can get into art school and what you need in your portfolio. So I applied for communication and media design, how you can read in the title probably. Communication and media design means that there's a greater part of graphic design and illustration as well, and the classic kind of design. But there's also a part of communication, public relations, and marketing. So let's conclude it's just general media design studies. I applied for and still study at a German university called Hochschule Düsseldorf. For my portfolio, I had to do a portfolio with 10 to 15 artworks. I will take the time in this video to critique each piece of mine, so this could be a bit longer. But I also want to share a bit more detail with you. And also do some sufficient roasting of my old artwork. So let's start with the title one. I'm sorry if I look to the side sometimes here because I'm watching my portfolio on this side and talking with you guys in the camera. This is my title page, and as you can see, it's like kind of bad. I mean, like really bad. I have to admit that I'm still not the best one in layout and typography, but this really sucks. Look at the background. I still like those colors, as you can see. But I don't know, it's just like a bit cringe. And also the font, but it's just the first page, you cannot judge. I really wanted to put a picture of myself to the portfolio because I wanted to share myself as an artist and tell them, hey, there's a person behind all the artwork, and that's me. Generally saying this is a bad first page. Be a bit more creative, do it better than I did. Let's move on to the first real page of the portfolio, which is some concept for a social media page. As you can see, I did some icons for the highlights, and I also tried to incorporate it all with the logo so that it matches, that it's now the like modern black and white style. And I also did a little mock-up. So for the next page, you can see it's the same kind of style, but in black. For that time it was alright, but now I'm really not a fan anymore of those icons. I mean, they're cohesive, they follow a style, but they're not very exciting. What I actually want to critique on those two sides is the layout itself. A few things could be different. The icons are they're not well placed, like there's no borders for the page, no margins, it just feels a bit lost. If you can do a better layout than me, then do it, please. Next page. For the same hostel bar, I did designs for like the paper package thingies and some packaging design and some designs for the papers you put under your plate, as you can see in that very, very bad mock-up up there. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing it like that, but today we have better options. If you can use generative AI Photoshop, then use that because it's way better. Or using Photoshop in general. I didn't use Photoshop for those pieces at all. I used Procreate actually. That was my way of fake Photoshopping my way through art back then. Can you imagine like wrapping your hamburger in that one? The top ones? It's pretty alright. Yeah, what I would do better about that page is definitely the layout, but in general, I think the design is alright, and for the beginning, it can stay. Next one. For the same hostel and bar, I did a wall art, and I wanted it to be Instagram friendly so that when people enter the restaurant, they could take a picture with it and tag the bar and the restaurant. Something modern and easy, but something that's still readable for the visitor. So I did that wall art, and I think it turned out pretty well. Again, the layout is bad, but I think the design itself is nice because I can show that I can do different kind of things. Not just digital art, but also physical art, and also on a greater scale, which I will come to in the next slide. Let's get to the tree. And I really like this one. This is an actual artwork that I did in another hostel in Spain. And it is huge. It's as big as a few people standing next to each other. Again, the professors like to see different things. Try out different things, even if you don't feel as comfortable with one medium as the other. They really like to see that you're open and brave to try. And also, as you can see, I already tagged my Instagram account on that one. And it's still the same tag, so got some free advertising out there. Next one. The Space Jungle. I really like this one as well. It's actually hanging on my wall. Wait, I can show you. I'm gonna tag you. It's up there. There it is. Let's get back to it. It's one of my favorite pieces I ever did with illustration. I actually did it, I think, with a mix of Copic markers and other of those wet pens. Wet pens? Here, it's those kind of pens, you know? And I would keep this in because even though it is so colorful and has like random colors used, it still follows its own style everywhere through that picture. And I think that's quite valuable for my portfolio. Let's move on. Okay, this is way better mock-ups than the one with the restaurant thing. The mock-up looks great, it looks realistic, and you really get a feel of when and how to use the postcards. Also, I really like the illustration, even though you cannot see it as well because it's like kind of tilted into the camera, but you get a better feeling of it, and I think this is the important part. And also the layout of the page is way better than any of them before. The postcards are some illustrations for a cafe that also actually exists, but I don't think that the postcards ever got printed. If I look back now, I'm like really impressed how different the things are that I did. Well, maybe not so impressed sometimes, but it's interesting to see. Next one. This was my yearbook from school when we graduated, and I did the book cover and some of the design inside, and I think it looks okay. I mean, I really like the cover still, even though some things could be better, and I don't know if any of you can read Japanese, but I don't really think it says anything that makes sense on the font. If I could choose, I would still keep that design because it shows that I can focus on, okay, what layout do I need for print? I tried it out and it worked. Also for this one again, the professors like if you can give a bit more context for the artwork, so don't just put the artwork and that's it, right? Don't put a long text or something underneath. The artwork should speak for itself. For example, with this yearbook thing, I took pictures of the yearbook in my hand to have a reference how big it is. I wore the hoodie as well to show that it's all the same design. And you should keep that in mind when you build your art portfolio, that you give more context to your artwork. You can present it because you give so much effort in it. It's worth it to present your art in the best way possible. Let's move on. This is a podcast cover for an actual podcast that also exists. I made that cover for some friends and they actually printed stickers of it and used it on their podcast. So this is also a real screenshot, not a mock-up from the podcast, which makes me happy as well. Again, I would still keep that in my portfolio because also for the bonus that it really exists. I again translated this design into different mediums for a podcast and for the stickers. Also me roasting and hating my layouts all the time, but this page I actually really like, even though it's quite simple. Let's move on, and actually those artworks, the architecture and nature artworks, they are very old already. Do you believe me when I tell you I did those with 15 years old, I think? Those I would 100% keep in. They all follow the same aesthetic and they're just so detailed, and you can see that I spent hours on each. I think I spent like 12 hours on each piece. That was a lot of effort, but it was worth it. And no, I didn't do it purposefully for the portfolio. I have to admit that I chose a lot of artworks that I did beforehand for the portfolio. I didn't do them specifically for it. But I would recommend you, if you have the time, put the effort in and create artworks for your portfolio specifically, because then you can think more about what the professors want, what you want to integrate, and you can also make it all more fitting to each other and follow the same style and even have a topic of your portfolio, which I am clearly missing. But if you can and have the time, I would recommend doing it. For the people looking at your portfolio, it just gives them a better understanding of it and it makes the portfolio be remembered better. Okay, let's move on. This is just some other more illustrations I did. Okay, quick stop here. I just noticed this editing, but can I just mention how much I hate that those pictures do not align perfectly? Please don't do this at home. You can see that I follow a similar aesthetic in a lot of those illustrations. It's very dreamy, it's very like a lot of at nighttime, a lot of colors and vibrant. It's just very important in my pictures, which just makes it all special. I really like those pieces. Okay, this one, I have to mention something. I did a portfolio review before I handed in my portfolio and they told me to remove that picture. They didn't want it. They said, it's too cliche. It's like too much heart pain. Like, oh, and it's the heart and the melting city. And generally the professors don't like you using very cliche pictures or images. Political topics, climate change, depression or something like that. Even though it might be very important and valid to you, they see it so often that they are just very annoyed by it. One professor told me that if he takes a shot every time he sees climate change, he would be drunk after seeing 3 portfolios, and I believe him. Don't do that mistake. Don't use overused and very common topics. But again, to that picture, I still wanted to keep it in because it was one of my favorites too. And I just liked it. I thought it was interesting and it was a bit different than the other ones, so it seems like it didn't hurt. But I mean, it's 1 year ago, and looking back at it, I'd still say, yeah, maybe I could have left it out and replaced it with something a bit more conceptual. Okay, the next pieces are from my architectural background, because some of you might know that I studied architecture 1 year before I applied to design studies. So those pieces came out of the architecture study, and I decided to keep them because they had a bit more of a artistic touch to it. And I mean, visualizations are always important. So I kept those 2, which I think are not too realistic and more atmospherical, and this is why I decided to keep them. I think they don't hurt my portfolio. I think they complement that I can think in 3D and think spatial or whatever, you know? Okay, I want to pull a little conclusion out of my own portfolio and review the good and bad parts, and obviously we're gonna start with the good parts. I can see that there is a student who is really passionate about the art and who also has clear strengths at some levels. And I would think, oh, alright, there's still a lot of room to improve, but there's definitely potential. I also tried different things, and I know there's a lot of people being very good at one thing. I actually helped one of my friends apply to the same study field, and he's so good in illustrating characters. He's doing it so well, but this is the only thing he's doing. And if you are super good in one thing, then I would recommend really showing that strength. But if you're not super good in one thing, then I would recommend to try different things. And this is what I did as well, or at least I tried it in my portfolio. I tried doing more architecture renders, I did more concept and social media art, I did illustrations. You can see that at that point of my design journey, illustrations were a strong and very interesting part for me. I can see now that this was the foundation of the designer I am today, and it's really funny to look back on that. Okay, so let's move to the cons of my portfolio, which clearly is the layout. I don't want to mention it in every second sentence, but let's look at the banner up there. The font is off in that banners. I mean, it's good that it's just a short description. You should use as little text as possible. Yeah, the banners itself, they are very bad. They are all in different colors. I could have been, in general, more coherent and cohesive in that portfolio. Maybe use the same color as a guiding color through my portfolio, not jumping from style to style every here and then. So this is a clear critique point. Also, what I would do different is try even more things. And yes, I mentioned that I tried a lot of things already, but I could have used even more things. For example, I didn't have anything with typography. Being a bit more experimental and brave with different mediums that I don't feel as comfortable with. Another point is that I would have liked to have more documentation of the process in there. And this is why I mentioned that you better create the artwork specifically for the portfolio. And if you have drawings, beginning sketches, idea finding, maybe bullet points, you can follow it through way better. And the professors like that as well, to see how you're thinking and not just the final product. And the last thing that is really important as well that I didn't mention, I could have had more concept. And in the portfolio review, they told me that as well. Do more concepts, like advertising concepts maybe, creating like a fake campaign. They like concepts. And if you can keep that in mind, then you're on a good way. If you want to see a more detailed video about what really to do and what not to do in a portfolio, because I really just scratched the surface here, then leave me a comment. And also please tell me in what situation you find yourself in right now, if you want to apply for a university, if you already have, or if you want to really show yourself. That would really interest me, and I hope I could take away some fear of you. You can do this, be confident in your art and practice. You can get accepted, because I did as well. Also check out my video about if art school is even for you or not. And if you are on the way of becoming a content creator or you're interested in that topic, then you should check out the other video about Instagram growth. Follow for more art tips and design content.